What do you know? Back again. Page 48. What did we get? Got halfway through chapter 4 in 2 sessions. 2-hour-long sessions. I just keep on getting hung up and we're deleting a lot. 1,700 words down. And we're gonna keep on getting chapter 4 today. So let me read the rest of it aloud and find ways to make it smoother and shorter and more succinct. Hopefully more entertaining and more sellable. To make it entice that literary agent that doesn't know who I am. Which is all of them. Okay. Here we go. Let's go into... Right now we're going to stick in the magic library until I start making some edits here. I'm just going to read. So, they're in their little sanctuary that BB learned to make through his dream. And a little statue of the thing that they fought in the jungle appeared. And this became to life. And this is right where I stopped. It stared at Hazel as she got closer, but continued to repeat the same loop of movements. And in its foreign voice, like, alright, deleting. She reached her hand out and touched it, and it didn't react. She looked at it for a second and began to look to the distance of the void. A red and black cloud started to form far in the empty space. It was barely noticeable at first, but it rapidly started to grow and expand until an entire side of the void was covered by it. I realized what she was doing. She was recreating that thing in the verge. The figure began to materialize. Still, it was only a partial image that loomed miles away from where we were, like a fast approaching. I'm going to delete that. The figure began to materialize. Great view, Caleb said and rolled his eyes. You think we can add some raw sewage somewhere too? The stone floor began expanding towards the blob, and the wall began building itself in front of the view. Stop it, Caleb. What the fuck? Editing and revising. Need to know. Great view, Caleb said. Do you think we add some raw sewage somewhere too? We need to know what we're up against, Hazel said. The stone floor began expanding towards the blob, and Great view, Caleb said. Do you think we can add some raw sewage somewhere too? We need to know what we're up against. The stone floor began expanding, and then a wall began building itself in front of the distant monstrosity. There, I made a wall, and if you want to. Okay, here we go. Great view, Caleb said and rolled his eyes. Do you think we can add some raw sewage somewhere too? We need to know what we're up against, Caleb, Hazel said. The stone floor began expanding, and then a wall began building itself in front of the distant monstrosity. There, I made a wall and a window for any crazy people that want to stare at it, Caleb said. She looked out the window, and I paced around our living statue. What good was this place? Where are we being taken? On the other side of the void from Caleb's new wall, a giant circular oak table formed and 3 wooden chairs. And 3 wooden chairs evenly spread around the perimeter. The chairs were each a masterful woodwork, but there was nothing distinct about them. We each walked to one of the chairs, Caleb at first, and the chair expanded and branched off, doubling in width. Swords and axes grew into the arms of the chairs, and a massive shield formed above his head. At first, it was a polished chrome, but it turned into 4 checkers, alternatively white and green. You are the warrior, a golden voice boomed. So right here, this portion, I reference a golden voice. This is a whole through line that I took away from earlier in the novel. So it's going to be introduced here, that concept, or not at all. So let's see. That's what I'm considering revising. You must be mighty when those around you cannot be. Okay. You are the warrior. A powerful voice that my mind wanted to describe as golden for some reason said. Okay, that's not how I'm going to say this. Powerful voice said, and my mind ended. You are the warrior, a powerful voice said, and an image of golden light appeared in my head for some reason. You must be mighty when those around you cannot be. You will be the sword and shield for the helpless. No. Caleb grinned and flexed his pencil-thin arms, though they were still easily more muscled than mine. No. We are deleting so much. So far, we're not even through a page, 100 words down. So, for context, I think it's 300 or 400 words a page, typically. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. That's a pretty full page. 300. So we're down a third of a page and we're not even through a page. So this is where we started today. Boom. That's a lot of deletion. That is a lot of deletion. I love it. And it seems like it's making it faster or more succinct to me. Hazel sat down and carefully kept her arms clear as the chair began to change. The end of each armrest formed into carvings of the sun on her right and the moon on her left. Above her, a tapestry of stars formed with an incredible depth. You are the navigator, chosen to keep the course. You will guide those that are lost, the voice said. Those that wish to remain hidden in the shadows will not escape you. Sighing, I pulled the third chair away from the table and sat down. The armrests formed into large anvils. Above me, hammers. Okay, there's a count going here. Above me, hammers appeared with old bellows actively blowing into a scorching fire. You are the blacksmith. Tools that you will build will be vital to protecting, guiding, and fixing on your path. Those that would cause pain will fear your creations. Directly behind each chair, the white void began to fill in with more stone floor and created 3 rooms. Directly behind each chair, the white void began to fill in as more stone floor created as more stone floor they were enclosed. Each room moved moved to the room behind Caleb and opened the door. It was fairly empty, other than a few training dummies and obstacles spread about, and the wall was covered in axes and swords. "Sweet," Caleb said and ran over to the room. Okay, what am I doing? Alright, I am checking on my channel to see if my voice is actually coming through. Alright, let's see if that came through. Alright. Let's get to it. "Sweet," Caleb said and ran over to the room. He took one of the swords off the wall and he wobbled as he supported the weight. Clumsily, he began to attack the dummies. He took one of the swords off the wall, and he wobbled as he supported the weight. Clumsily, he began to attack the dummies. The strikes mostly fell short of the target and clanged off the floor. When they didn't fall short, they might as well have. "Some warrior," Hazel said, and tried to pick up one of the swords, but as it came off the mount on the wall, it fell right to the floor. She wasn't able to lift it off the ground further than her waist. "Let's be careful, guys," I said and extended my hand to Hazel. She handed me the sword, and I mounted it back on the wall. Caleb stored his as well. We walked out of the training ground and over to the room behind Hazel's chair. There was a map of the Earth. We walked out of the training ground and over to another room. Just make this clear. We walked out of the training ground and over to another room, the one behind Hazel's chair. There was a map. Okay, how about this? A map of the Earth. A map of the Earth is on A map of the Earth sat on a table in the center of the room. Other than the map being more detailed than any I had ever seen, there wasn't much to it. We walked up to one side of the table. A map. Great, Caleb said. At least my room has some swords in it. Well, at least I know how to use the map, Hazel said. Tell me, genius, how are you going to use this map? For a geography test? Copper Valley is right about here, she said without paying attention, and pointed out an area on the map. As her hand touched the map, it began to move. The paper hanging off the edges of either side of the table wound up in rollers like ancient scrolls. Impossibly, these rollers pulled the map on each side, and it didn't rip. Instead, every side. And it didn't rip. Instead, the map zoomed in on Copper Valley. The perspective went from an airplane's view to a map close enough to see Uncle Paul and Aunt Tina's house. The house in the neighborhood began to pop out like a model town, like the model town.
Where you are. Bar quality cocktails in a can. So now you can enjoy the bar whenever, wherever. Cutwater. Open the bar. Copyright 2023.
Like the model town in Beetlejuice. In the front yard, our house. In the front yard of our house, there were 3 little models of Caleb, Hazy, and I, standing in a circle. They were miniature wood figures.
I can generate slides and words in seconds.
The real mystery is why I'm only learning this now.
Canva.com, designed for work.
In front of the yard of our house, there were 3 mini wooden figures, and it was clear that they were Caleb, Hazy, As her hand touched the map, it began to move. The paper Now I'm looking for a synonym. Not a synonym. I'm actually looking for a word. A verb specifically here. See if I can find it. I don't want to embarrass myself if it's obvious to you guys, so I'm going to look it up, and then once you see me put it down, it will either be embarrassing or not. Let's see. As her hand touched the map, I didn't find any new word. As her hand touched the map, it began to move. The edges of the map rolled up like scrolls, and possibly these rollers pulled the map on every side, and it didn't rip. Instead, the map zoomed in on Copper Valley. The perspective went from a regular map to an airplane's view to a map to a view close enough to see Uncle Paul and Aunt Tina's house. The houses in the neighborhood began to pop out like the model town in Beetlejuice. In the front of the yard of our house, there were 3 mini wooden figurines, and they were detailed enough that they were clearly models. Okay, as her hand touched the map, it began to move. The edges of the map rolled up like, let's just say ancient scrolls there. Trying to get rid of as many words as possible, but sometimes. As her hand touched the map, it began to move. The edges of the map rolled up like ancient scrolls, and possibly the rolling pulled the map on every side, and it didn't rip. Instead, the map zoomed in on Copper Valley. The perspective went from a regular map to an airplane's view, to a view close enough that close enough to see Uncle Paul's and Aunt Tina's house. The houses in the neighborhood began to pop out First, their palm tree, followed by other trees and houses, began to pop out of the map, like the model town in Beetlejuice. In the front yards of our house, there were 3 mini wooden figurines, and they were detailed enough that they were clearly models of Caleb, Hazy, and I. Other little models represent other models represent other models showed other people outside and other models showed the other people outside of the neighborhood. Jesse and the flip-off girls weren't outside of the house, but the red VW Rabbit was still there. So this shows us where we were when we left to the Verge. It's cool, but I'm not sure how useful that is, Hazy said. I wish it would show us where you were when you ran into that thing. Before she had even had the sentence completely out. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. Right, give me a second. Give me a second. Check, check, check. Hello, hello, hello. Alright, I'll be right back. Check. Are you guys glad that you got to hear all that? Where's that? Check. Here we go. A black string of smoke shot out from our figurines directly above the map. The tip hovered. The end of the string hovered at about our at the end of the string hovered at about our eye level. Hazy studied it, reached out and pulled it down towards the table like she was opening curtains. Copper Valley moved out of focus and became a two-dimensional map again. World map again. Another map appeared at the top of the string and floated just above the table. It was another three-dimensional close-up map. It was the jungle that Caleb and I had been transported to. And sure enough, there's a figurine of a monster, frozen in mid-leap, about to land on the figurines of me and my brother. What the hell? Caleb said. I get why it shows us in the driveway still. That's where we were last, but why does it show us there too? Hazel looked at him and back to the map, and she pulled the black string in another direction until we had a close view of Copper Valley again. The jungle vanished as it got to my height. Hazel looked at him. Hazel looked at him and back to the map. She pulled the black string. Period. Capital. She pulled the black string in the other direction until we had the close view of Copper Valley again, and the jungle vanished. And the jungle map vanished above. Not just vanished. I think the black string is the verge. And this is where we are on one side of the verge. And that is where you are on the other side. On the other, she said. Caleb said and looked at me. Pacing around the map, I sighed. So, the verge is like a tunnel between two places. One side is Copper Valley, and on the other is that jungle. I pointed up to where the jungle map had vanished. Caleb shook his head and threw his arms up in the air. Caleb shook his head and threw his arms up in the air. So we're supposed to go back there and fight that? He laughed and pointed to the training room. I could barely lift those things. That monster was faster than Jean-Claude Van Damme. Now I show you some trick or two, I said with a purposely awful accent. The other two looked at me. and then each other, and then each other and smiled. What, from Bloodsport? Now I show you some trick or two, I said with a purposefully awful accent. The other two looked at me, and then each other, and smiled. What? From Bloodsport? The gold tooth guy? I finished. That thing isn't just gonna knock out our teeth, though, Caleb said. What's Bloodsport? Hazel asked. Only the best movie about a real-life martial arts tournament, Caleb responded excitedly. No way that... Only the best movie about a real-life martial arts sport tournament. They had all the real tournament records during the credits. Caleb. Only the best movie about a real-life martial arts tournament. I know you don't think it's real, BB, but they had all those records in the credits. They had all the tournament records in the credits, Caleb responded excitedly. No way that really happened, I argued. Okay, USA, Caleb impersonated, and we both doubled over with laughter. Hazy crossed her arms in front of herself impatiently, and after a second or two, she pulled the black string down again and left a map with a creature leaping onto our little wooden cells right at our level. The laughter left the room more abruptly than it had started. Guys, we have more pressing things. I could just... Our laughter left the room more. We need to figure this out. She pointed to the scene in front of us. First, when are we going to the jungle? When the giant in the verge is gone? Caleb said. Yeah, but how will we know? It has something to do with this room, Hazel said, and searched around. When we leave here, which way are we going to? I said, and gestured to the jungle map and down to Copper Valley. And is that even something we can control? I thought about it some more. If we were forced to go back to that pond monster, we would we need to fight it or run from it, and neither of those options seemed like a win. I thought about it some more. If we were forced to go back towards the pond monster, we need to fight it or run from it, and neither of those options seemed like a win. I looked towards the room that opened up behind my chair. Why don't we open... Caleb said, "Yeah, but how will we know?" So what page are we on? We're on 53. I think this goes all the way to 68. We're hovering. We haven't lost any words in the last page or two. We're just kind of... Okay, where's the end? Did I say 68? Let's check it out. Nope, not 68. Let's go 67 since we've deleted... No, not 67. Oh, bam, 65. So we have a few more pages to go. How long have I been broadcasting? Just trying to do an hour a day. Get through this. Have a record of this. Okay. What do we do, BB? I'm going to get through this last page I was on here. Something in this room will help, Hazel said and searched around. When we leave here, which way do we... Alright, I'm just going to end here. Enough editing for one day. I'm on page 54.